Let me tell about the S&P and Moody's ratings, which are AAA, the best in the entire world. The best in the entire world. We have the second lowest debt in the GDP, Mr. Speaker. We're doing just fine.
Speaker, ratings are always great until the day they're not.
We're doing just fine. We're doing just fine. We're doing just fine. We're doing just fine.
Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister proposed the worst budget deficit in history outside of the COVID period. Every dollar he spends costs Canadians in their taxes and through inflation. More spending by government means more sacrifices for Canadians, with more than 1 in 4 Canadians now living in financially insecure households. Will this Prime Minister at least consider reducing his deficits to levels that we saw under Justin Trudeau?
Mr. Speaker, what's remarkable about this budget is that it builds for the future, but it helps people today. This is a budget that cuts taxes for 22 million Canadians, saving families up to $800 a year. It makes the National School Food Program permanent, helping over 500,000 kids. It delivers automatic federal tax filing for 5.5 million Canadians. It invests in housing, it invests in infrastructure, and it lowers the barriers to make the Canada Disability Benefit more accessible. If the member opposite truly cares about affordability for families in Canada, he would come on over and vote for this budget.
Mr. Speaker, I know it's difficult for some members of the Liberal caucus to understand, but parents would actually prefer to be able to afford to buy food themselves for their kids. And they used to be able to before these Liberals took office. Latest numbers today show that more than 1 in 4 people in Canada are living in a financially insecure household. More than 1 in 4. That is the legacy of this party. It wasn't this way before. It doesn't have to be that way again. When will they change course?
Mr. Speaker, these Conservatives think they know best, but they are actually ignoring the experts. They're ignoring the Coalition for Healthy School Food, who calls this budget a great step forward to support children and youth in Canada. They're ignoring the Heart and Stroke Foundation and the Breakfast Club of Canada that also applaud our commitment to making the National School Food Program permanent. The Conservative Party needs to listen to the experts, listen to Children First Canada about why this program makes a difference and why 500,000 families across the country are going to benefit from it.
Speaking of experts, according to Fitch Ratings just yesterday, quote, Canada's proposed budget announced in Parliament on November 4th underscores the erosion of the federal government's finances. Persistent fiscal expansion and a rising debt burden have weakened its credit profile and could increase rating pressure over the medium term. Mr. Speaker, this has happened before with crushing impact on Canadians. In the 90s, after similar rating pressure, the Liberal government of the day was forced to cut 32% from federal health and social transfers over just 2 years. Does anyone over there understand the gravity of this situation?
Mr. Speaker, as somebody who spent much of his life in the banking community, let me tell him about the S&P and Moody's ratings, which are AAA, the best in the entire world. The best in the entire world. We have the second lowest debt in the GDP, Mr. Speaker. We're doing just fine.
Mr. Speaker, ratings are always great until the day they're not. Here's a quick review of the early 90s from Reuters. February 1994, quote, Liberal government brings down what it considers to be a tough budget. It nonetheless has spending rising slightly, an immediate public and market reaction as it did not go nearly far enough. January 1995, quote, a biting editorial in the Wall Street Journal headline, Bankrupt Canada calls Canada an honorary member of the third world. The next month, the Liberal government was forced to make the most vicious cuts to healthcare and social programs in Canadian history. Who over there is willing to take a stand to avoid a repeat?
Mr. Speaker, Budget 2025 includes generational investments to rebuild, rearm and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces, and it starts with our people. This budget includes a $2 billion historic pay and benefits package, which will impact close to 100,000 forces and their families. Untrained sailors, privates and aviators are receiving a 20% pay raise. That's what's in our budget. That's what's at stake. All members of the House should come together to support our forces as they help build and keep Canada strong.
Mr. Speaker, while Canadians are being forced to choose between heating and eating, this government has chosen to increase our national debt by $80 billion. Can this Prime Minister please explain how driving up the debt and increasing the cost of living is going to help the single mom skipping meals, the senior afraid to open their hydro bill, or the young family priced out of their new home? Or is this just continued economic theater from a government that's completely lost touch with reality?
They are fighting for youth, but they plan to vote against a national school food program. What? They say they are fighting for families, but they plan to vote against a middle income tax cut. Wow. They say they are fighting for workers, but they plan to vote against a $75 million apprenticeship training fund. They say they are fighting for our borders, but they plan to vote against a much-needed pay raise for our service members in our armed forces, including in my riding at CFB Esquimalt. Canadians want to know who these Conservatives are fighting for, because it certainly is not Canadian.
Speaker, for 10 years of liberal inflationary deficits, working Canadians have never had it so tough. People lined up at food banks and parents putting beef back on the grocery store shelf were desperate for something in the budget to bring prices down. Did the Prime Minister scrap hidden taxes on food? No. Did he scrap the 17 cents fuel standards tax? No. The Prime Minister heard the cries of working Canadians, and what did he do? He scrapped the luxury tax on private jets and yachts.
Carney, old bean, if you want to really help lower the cost of things, how about that luxury tax on private jets and yachts? The last time I bought a Gulfstream, I had to pay millions. We were all elbows up for you, so it's time you did something for us. What's crazy about that is that when someone pitched that idea, Carney said, he's right, you know. And now it's in the budget. Not a single measure to bring down home prices, not a single measure to bring down grocery prices, not a single measure to fight inflation. Nothing to take off the taxes on grocery farming and production. Instead, a tax break on private jets and yachts.
That's right, the only measure in this budget to make things cheaper will only apply to boats and airplanes. Can the Prime Minister tell us how many Canadians lined up at food banks will benefit from the private jet tax cut?
Canadians want is a government that will invest in their futures and invest in their possibility, and that's exactly what we've been doing, Mr. Speaker. 67,000 new jobs added this month, Mr. Speaker, 2 months in a row, where we're seeing unemployment go down. And what's great about this, Mr. Speaker, is youth unemployment is going down. So the investments we're making are working. This is a budget for young people, for seniors, for families. They're going to vote against things like dental care. They're going to vote against things like child care. That's what families need, and that's exactly what this budget delivers.
If they really wanted to give workers a break, they'd scrap the industrial carbon tax that their American competitors don't have to pay. Now we all know who this budget really was for. It was a Brookfield boardroom budget. After all, the billions in extra debt means bankers and bondholders get big interest payments, and now when those board members go out to buy a luxury private jet, they get a big tax break. A Gulfstream G600 is currently listed for $63 million. Can the Prime Minister tell us how much a Brookfield executive will save with the private jet tax cut, and how much more Canadians will have to pay when food prices go up?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Canadians do not live in a pretend world. They know there is no tax on food. They know which party always vote against affordability, against dental care, pharmacare, child care, basically anything with the word care in it. But most importantly, Canadians know that our government is there for them with a budget that will protect jobs in critical sectors like auto, steel, aluminum, lumber, build affordable housing and the infrastructures our communities need all across Canada, empower, catalyze our economy. So if you're really there for Canadians, you'll vote for the budget.
Mr. Speaker, this government is the most expensive in Canada's history. Every dollar spent by the PM comes directly out of Canadians' pockets. The more he spends, the more everything costs. In my riding, producers are seeing their costs skyrocket because of the industrial carbon tax. Everything is going up, machinery, transportation, and it costs more to produce, and food prices go up at the grocery stores. While this PM spends recklessly, families continue to struggle to put food on the table. Why does this government refuse to admit that its industrial carbon tax is a tax on food that we have to pay? Mr. Speaker, clearly the carbon tax on industry is important to keep so we can protect our climate. Nevertheless, the cost of living is our priority, and we are going to work on this. This is a responsible budget to do so. And when will the opposition understand that we have to keep these factors for Canadians, and they should be supporting the budget? Mr. Speaker, it's clear this minister does not understand the reality on the ground, because according to a Nanos poll, 1 in 5 Canadians have skipped paying a bill just to put food on the table. Frankly, this is unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, can this Prime Minister explain to my constituents and theirs why he's stubbornly sticking to this industrial carbon tax while families have to choose between heating their homes and filling their fridges? Not only do we know that Quebecers support this budget, we know why. Because we're going to deliver for them. Good jobs in my riding, this riding, will ensure that people who work at Alstom will have good jobs, will be able to buy groceries, and will be able to meet the needs of their families. Quebecers also want a good healthcare system. The federal government has continue to increase health. Well, in past budgets, they've increased health transfers, and we're keeping them the same in this one. And we're supporting the construction of hospitals. The Quebec government asked for this, and we delivered for them, and we're there for Quebec.
The Liberals promised to spend less, but have introduced the largest budget deficit in history outside of COVID. This at a time when 1 in 5 Canadians say they've skipped paying a bill to afford groceries this past year. Liberals had a chance to lower food prices. Instead, they increased the industrial carbon tax on our farms, driving up the cost of fertilizer and farm equipment. Why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive?
If that member should take next week and go and meet with her local chapters of the building trades in her riding, I encourage every member to take next week to meet with the locals to understand why they are supporting this budget. From coast to coast to coast, workers are supporting our plan. The Canadian building trades, the Alberta building trades, the IBEW, the carpenters, on and on. They are endorsing the investments made in this budget, Mr. Speaker. The SEIU said it best. Promises made, promises kept. Mr. Speaker, they're supporting the investments because we're building good jobs, good union jobs.
After 10 years of Liberal government, young Canadians are struggling. They're struggling to afford homes in one of the least affordable housing markets in the world. They're struggling to find jobs in an economy that is increasingly slowing down, and they're struggling just to afford food after some of the highest food inflation in more than 30 years. This budget was an opportunity to do right by the next generation. Instead, the Liberals announced over $300 billion in new debt that will be left to these exact same young Canadians to pay for. How is that ethical? How is that fair? How is that remotely fiscally responsible?
Mr. Speaker, one number, 67,000 jobs created. And how are we supporting them? We are supporting them by investing in their health. And through Budget 2025, we're investing $5 billion to renew hospitals and healthcare centers, $97 million to recognize skilled professionals faster, and new supports for personal support workers. And Mr. Speaker, don't just take it from me, take it from CMA. They're saying this is a right step in the right direction to support the health of our nation.
I have a simple question for the Liberal government. Over the past 10 years, they have doubled Canada's national debt. In that same time, unsurprisingly, they have also doubled the amount of taxpayers' money that they waste paying interest on that debt. In fact, today we now spend $55 billion a year just on interest payments. That's more than we collect in the GST. That's more than we spend on healthcare. And now they want to borrow another $320 billion. Does this government really think that spending $55 billion not on healthcare, not on roads, but on interest is a good use of taxpayer money, yes or no?
We are building Canada strong, and that includes the spaces and places that Canadians go to play, to practice, and to exercise, Mr. Speaker. A healthy lifestyle is preventative medicine, and we are building the facilities necessary right across this country. New rinks, new pools, new field houses, so the next generation of Canadians can have better physical literacy, a healthier lifestyle, and they can connect with their communities in those important places, Mr. Speaker. Why won't the Conservatives join us, build Canada strong, and make sure that every community has access to those facilities, that infrastructure that keeps us healthy and our communities connected?
We're doing just fine.